That's a daily occurrence. What's your life? I got one. Fix it. Yeah. Okay. Fix it. I know the ultimate is right. Yeah, for a good thing, it's just a long time. You're going to spend more money. It's not even like 3,000. Let's get some cash from think about how many that's gone. And honestly, it's something about for that part to just buy a house. It's how you have to
Christian,
I think
what is it? Don't worry about it. I mean, I don't want you to fall off the head. We had issues last semester as well. Okay, let's go ahead and start the class. Welcome to Aerospace and Mechanical Engineering Labs. We do have, this is the first time we are combining the two classes, Aerospace Lab and Mechanical Engineering Lab. The two people you see sitting in front of the class, Christian Smith and Madison Bellep, are the TAs for the Aerospace Engineering side of the class. The Mechanical Engineering people couldn't come, but you are going to meet them eventually when you go to the lab. My name is Mustafa Mobli. I'm going to be the instructor for the course. And yeah, we are going to have a small introduction. We're going to talk about the class. We're going to talk about the syllabus and the expectations, go what you need to do, and the topics we are going to cover in this semester. And then we'll be done today. Hopefully we can wrap up the class earlier than 15 minutes. So, let's talk about the syllabus. Syllabus is not posted on Blackboard yet. The reason is we have a very small issue with the course Blackboard. We have to combine all of the sections together, have a unified section for me to upload all of the information, but that hasn't happened yet, and it will happen today. So, you're going to see the syllabus uploaded on Blackboard, but it is ready to go. So, office hours, you know when the class time is, you know when your lab section is. The office hours, if you need to talk to me, is going to be Wednesday from 12 to 2 p.m. There is no textbook for the class. There will be just lecture notes, handouts, and lab instructions. You have to check Blackboard regularly. All of the submissions are done on Blackboard. All of the quizzes are given on Blackboard. Everything is on Blackboard. There is no submission. There is no hard copy submissions, essentially. And yeah, let's move on. The lecture schedule for this course is a little different from your regular classes. This is a 3 credit hour class, which essentially means that you have to have 2 15-minute to 1-hour lectures and 1 2-hour lab. But as you've seen on Blackboard, this is the schedule for Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays. The reason is we don't really have 15-minute Monday, Wednesday classes. So technically, we shouldn't have any classes on Friday. But in reality, we only have 1 lecture. So essentially, you only have to come to class and talk to me once a week. And that is going to happen on Monday, except for next week. Next week, as you all know, Monday is, there's no classes on Monday. So we are going to have our lecture on Wednesday, and that is the only time we are going to have a lecture on Wednesdays. I'm sorry. Wednesdays are the assigned time for you to study the lab instructions. So the lab instructions are definitely going to be posted before the lab. And then on Friday, during the official class time, you have to take a pre-lab quiz. This is a quiz just to make sure that you have studied the lab instructions, and then you go to the lab, you know what to do. You know what you're expected to do. You know you have to do any calculations in these quizzes. Just have to make sure you have read through the lab instructions. It's a 50-minute quiz. You have one attempt, and these are graded. These are going to be a part of your grade. Do we have any questions so far? No? Okay, let's move on. So the lab schedule. As I said, this is the first time in our department that we are combining the two classes. The lab schedule for the two classes are very similar. The lab schedule you see used to be the lab schedule only for the aerospace labs, ME labs. We only did 5 labs for the ME lab course, but we have decided to increase the number of the labs for the ME. So the only lab that is different for aerospace students is the third lab, the flight mechanics lab. And mechanical engineering students will get to use a 3D printer. It's a 3D printing lab, manufacturing one lab, which doesn't happen for aerospace students. Let's talk about the labs a little bit. Some of your labs are going to be very short, some of your labs are going to be a little longer. We'll try to contain all of the labs in the 2-hour slotted time. And I'm sure your TAs are going to try to do that. We are going to start with the uncertainty analysis, which is essentially a review of the statistics. We're going to talk about the statistical methods you need to know and talk about the statistical analysis you have to do for the labs next Wednesday. So this is where the lecture note is given. And then on Friday, we're going to see the dates later. On Friday, you have to take the pre-lab quiz. And then on starting January 22nd, you are going to go to your own lab section, do the uncertainty analysis lab. It's a very short lab. We are going to give you a cube that is 1 inch by 2 inch by 3 inches. You just have to do 30 measurements of each side of it and do a statistical analysis. This is mostly to remind you of the knowledge of the statistics that I'm sure you already have. We are going to move on to the hardness test, manufacturing flight mechanics. We are going to have a lab view exercise, which lab view is the software that is used for mostly for most of the experimental analysis for the data collection. Move on to the bending and torsion lab, strain gauge, installation and measurements, motion lab, fluid test, tensile test, and wind tunnel. So, again, we are going to have one lecture for each of the labs. We're going to be here. We're going to have the one pre-lab quiz, then you're going to do the lab the week after all of these pre-lab quizzes and lectures, and the week after the lab on Friday. So you at least have 8 days to, you have to submit a lab report. We are going to talk about the lab reports. There are 10 labs. I don't really expect to see 10 full lab reports. I try to make sure the lab reports are very, very short. So you don't really have to spend a lot of time on the lab reports. We are going to discuss this in a second. Any questions so far about the labs, about the schedule, or about the syllabus? No. The last thing you'll have to do for this course is to do a final project. There are 2 different final projects for the 2 different classes we have. Mechanical engineering students have to 3D print a dog bone sample. If you don't know what a dog bone sample is, you are going to learn. And then, so you have to 3D print one sample, and then you have to improve the design of this sample by changing the 3D printing criteria, to essentially improve the Young's modulus of that sample. And these will be done in teams. You have to work with the teams that you have worked with all the semester for your lab reports for your lab, and then you have to submit a final report with your results. There is no presentation necessary for these projects, but that is subject to, I may change it. I may ask you to do a presentation. But you will know at least one or 1.5 months in advance. For aerospace engineering students, we are going to ask them to design and build an aircraft in the flight simulators we have, and then do an aerodynamic performance analysis, then improve the design, do aerodynamic performance analysis again, write a lab report. And when the time comes, we are going to talk about these in detail. There will be a project guideline uploaded on Blackboard in a month or so you can start early if you want. And you can actually, as far as I'm concerned, you can finish these projects as soon as the guideline is uploaded and be done with the project. You don't have to wait until the end of the semester. Any questions? Okay. So teams. Each lab section will have 2 or 3 teams. The teams are going to be, like you are going to be assigned to a team by your TA at random. Then you go to the first lab. If you want to be with your friends in a team, that's all right. You just have to ask your lab TA to make sure that you are in the same team as your friends. And these teams are the teams who are going to work on the final project together. So you will have your team until the end of the semester. If there is one person in your team that is not pulling their weight, that is not doing what they're supposed to do, just send me an email, CC your TA, and complain about your teammate, right? And they might lose up to 50% of the grade. Let's say on a lab report you get 4, your teammate doesn't help, they will get 2, right? But yeah, do you have any questions about this? Of course, these complaints are going to be anonymous. Your teammates are never going to know you have complained, and in their feedbacks, we are going to make sure that they think everyone on the team has received the 2 out of the 4th grade, right? So you are going to remain anonymous. But if you don't complain before the grading is done, that is your loss, right? Don't come to me after you have submitted a lab report or after you have done the project and tell me that this person didn't pull their weight, and that's why I didn't do the project well, right? Does this make sense? So, class policies. The lectures are going to be recorded, and we are recording this lecture as we speak, and they will be posted online. Attendance in the lectures is not necessary, is not mandatory. You don't have to come to lectures, but you have to attend the lab. I would say it is always a good idea to come to the lectures because there might be changes, things might happen, and if you are not attending the class, you might not become aware of the change, right? And you cannot send me an email later and tell me why didn't you let us know that this page is changing, right? But it is your responsibility to attend the class. I don't take attendance for the lectures, but you have to be here, right? You're not going to lose any points if you don't come to class, but if you miss something, that is going to be on you. Okay, does this make sense? Okay. Attendance in the labs is mandatory. If you do not attend the lab, you are going to lose the attendance point for the lab section, the lab report points, and the quiz point, the pre-lab quiz points. So you cannot just say, I didn't come to the lab, but I'm going to write the lab. That's not going to work. If you don't come to the lab, you will lose all of the points that is related to that specific lab. Each lab has 4 points. The attendance quizzes have 2 points, and the attendance in the lab has 0.1 points. So you're going to lose 6.1 points. There is absolutely no late submission accepted for anything, right? Of course, if you have a valid excuse, if you got into a car crash or whatever, as long as you submit the proof of it, some sort of proof, right? A communication from your doctors or a picture of the crash or whatever. Right? Hopefully nothing happens to my arm. I am going to work with you on the deadline and late submissions and whatnot. But if you do not submit your work by the deadline, you will definitely lose all of the points for it. I want to make sure that you can submit all of the lab reports, all of the pre-app quizzes. I want to make them short and as short as possible to make sure that you can submit your lab reports by the deadline. But if you don't, it is on you. And you must follow the correct formatting for the lab reports. And the correct formatting is very important for the lab reports. Again, the reason is the written portion of your lab reports is very minimal. It's maximum 2 pages. We're going to talk about it in a second. It's maximum 2 pages, so there is nothing to grade there. The formatting is the main thing that you have to follow. And if you miss any part of the formatting, you will get a 0 on the lab reports, right? Following the formatting is very easy. It is not rocket science. You have to be able to follow the formatting, and if you don't, you are going to get a 0 on the lab report. Lab report format. Lab report must include the following section. It has to have a title page. In the title page, you have to include the title, the name of the authors, name of the course, name of the instructor, name of the TA, and the date. And then you have to follow the title page with an abstract. In the abstract, you just have to say, talk about the lab itself, what you have done, and what were the results. Like 3-4 sentences, 1 paragraph, nothing more than it. The same thing is true for introduction. I guess this shouldn't have been here. The same thing is true for introduction. You don't have to have 1 paragraph on the introduction. It can be shorter. You just have to introduce the lab. Why do we do this lab? What are the reasons for uncertainty? What may be a reason for error? And these sort of things. Very short. Then you have to move on to the procedure. What did you use? What kind of device or numerical method, a statistical analysis, a statistical method did you use to do the lab and analyze the results? Very short. Maybe the equations you had used. Again, very short. And move on to the results section. The results section, you just have to explain your results. This is what I did. These are the calculations I did. And these are the results. You don't have to present the graphs or tables here. Just explain the results. And then you're going to move on to the conclusion, very short conclusion. We're going to move on to the references. For the references, we use the references style and the formatting of AIAA. If you want, you can use the AESP formatting as well, but they are the same formatting basically. AIAA formatting is a little more popular with journals and whatnot, so that's why I use AIAA. Any questions so far? Okay, so this is the first part of the lab, the written portion of the lab report. So I have to explain everything. Maximum 2 pages. It cannot be more than 2 pages. And all of the fonts and everything are not. Yeah. All of the fonts and everything are described here. It has to be Calibri font, size 11, single space, and single column with 1-inch margin. And then when you're done with the 2 pages, you just have to add all of your calculations. It can be a table, it can be a graph, it can be whatever. I don't really have a criteria for the tables and graphs, but all of the axes have to be labeled. I mean, it has to be a graph that is legible and understandable. When you look at it, you understand what this is, what it represents, what all of the numbers mean, right? And cannot go out of the 1-inch margin as well. Do you have any questions? No? Yes.
The graph and tables is beyond the 2 pages, right?
Beyond the 2 pages, yeah. I mean, the graph and table, if you need to include 10 graphs, I don't really see a scenario in which you need to have more than 3-4 pages for an lab report total. But let's say you want to present 10-15 graphs or whatever it is. There is no size limit. I mean, after beyond the 2 pages, you can go up to 100 pages. That's what I'm saying. Of course, that won't happen. Well, if it happens, it is all right. Lab report gradings. As I said, each lab report is going to be worth 4 points, and of course, you have to make sure that the written portion of it is written well. Otherwise, you will lose some points. That is, your TA's decision, right? So if you want to complain about the number of points you have lost, you have to talk to your TA first. If you are not satisfied, reach out to me, and I will talk to the TA and regrade your reports, right? Usually not a great idea. You will lose more points when you talk to me because the TAs are more lenient with the lab reports. And this is usually the case, right? And but if you feel like that your TA, for whatever reason, is not treating you well, you have to reach out to me. If you have any complaints about your TAs, you have to reach out to me. You have to keep in mind that the person who is doing the lab for you, who is in charge of the lab, is your TA. And if they're not doing their job, I have no way of knowing, right? I'm not going to be there with them. So if you have an issue with the TA, with the lab, with any of the equipment, you have to reach out to me as soon as possible, okay? Then if you fail to follow the formatting, if you fail to upload any file, I guess if you fail to upload a PDF file, so you have to change this, a PDF file, or if your calculations do not make any sense, your results are very far off, which essentially means that you don't know what you're doing, and if you don't have the correct referencing, or if you do not include any of the sections, you will lose all of the points for the lab. Following the formatting is super easy, and if you fail to follow the formatting, you will lose all the points. Any questions? No. Due dates. I guess we have talked about this. Pre-lab quizzes will be due the week before the lab on Friday. Lab reports will be due the Friday after the week of the lab. So if your lab section is on a Thursday, you have to submit your report in 8 days. Yeah, this is due Friday after the week of the lab. And the final project is due Sunday, April 14th at the end of the day. So hopefully by the last week of the classes, you will be done with this lab course. And these are the due dates for the pre-lab quizzes and the lab reports. These are also included in the syllabus. You can always come back to this. This will be uploaded on Blackboard as soon as we get the issue fixed. And you are welcome to send me an email anytime if you have a question. Or you are also welcome to come by my office if you have a question. My office is in the 300 main building, A117. I think it is listed on the first slide of this PowerPoint and also on syllabus. The assessment criteria. Lab reports. You have 10 lab reports. In total, they will be worth 40%. 3 lab quizzes, 10 pre-lab quizzes will be worth 20%. So each pre-lab quiz is going to be worth 2%. Attendance in the lab is going to be worth 10%. So each lab's attendance is worth 1%, not 1%. And the final project is going to be worth 30%. The formatting criteria and guidelines for the final project is going to be different from the lab reports. It's going to be a little more extensive, but I will upload all of the formatting soon. And let's see. Do we have any questions? Any questions? So everything's crystal clear, huh? Yes.
Our 2-hour lab this week is...
There is no lab this week. Let's go back to the lab schedule. There is no lab this week and next week. Lab schedule. These are the weeks, right? First week of classes, no labs. Second week of classes, no labs. We are going to have our lecture on Wednesday next week. This is the only time we have the lecture on Wednesday. We are going to review the statistical analysis. We are essentially... is there anyone in class who has not passed the statistics course? Okay.
You got one back.
Yeah, two students, 3. That is all right. 4, a couple of you. That's all right. We are going to review whatever you need to know. We are going to talk about the confidence intervals, Z-score, and student T-score, and I guess a little bit about data presentation. And so class next Wednesday, you are going to start an uncertainty analysis from B3 and move on from there.
So we don't have a class Wednesday or Friday this week.
You don't have any class on any Wednesday or any Friday except for next Wednesday. Did you come to class later? Did you talk about this at the beginning of the class, right?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure.
Yeah, I'm just clarifying.
I want to ask, are there any due dates on the spring break week?
No. And if there is, that's my mistake. That will be fixed. No, there are no due dates on a spring break week. Yeah. That there is one before the spring break on Friday, and there is one on the week after the spring break. But there are no due dates. There are no classes or any lab during the spring break. Any other questions? Okay, so if you are an aerospace engineering student, you can come to the front of the class and meet with your TAs. Madison is the TA for section 2, right?
Yeah, on Tuesday.
And Christian is the TA for section 1 and 3. And the rest of you, you don't really have anything else, unless you have a question for me. That's it for today's class. See you all next week.